cloud, not a. There we go.
Yeah. Bingo.
There we go. We got it. All right. Let's take a nice deep centering breath in, as we always do. Ooh, and let's practice that heart math, heart breathing, where we breathe into the center of our chest and imagine that it's our heart that's breathing out. And I loved what Relaine said yesterday about breathing out from the heart. Or maybe it wasn't yesterday. It was a while ago. Let's come into that place, into that center. Into the light of the divine, the love, the power, the presence within us. Oh, and it's from this connection that we begin our time this evening. Our curiosity is coming out to play, and our imaginations are stretched to embrace new possibilities and new ideas that are within the mind, the divine mind, that we've not yet thought of or haven't yet touched our heart. So I know that this wonderful divine group of people, of individualized expressions that come together, are here to support each other, to care for each other, to come together in love in this one mind, this one life, this one ultimate presence of love and just delight. So I just relax in knowing that all is well and that everything that needs to be or wants to be heard, felt, experienced is. And I'm so grateful for all of this. And together we say, and so it is.
So it is.
All right, here comes Relaine. Yeah. I'm glad you came on. So I don't want this to be like a lesson or anything, because we all know how to do spiritual mind treatment. So what I was really looking for is just kind of digging deeper into what's really going on when we practice spiritual mind treatment, you know, and I always love that it's such an embodiment of all of the principles, well, at least the basic principles that we teach in Science of Mind. You know, God is all there is, and we are part of that all that is, and we use this law, and we move into alignment or a shift in consciousness with what is already within us. And then we open up with a sense of knowing that all is well through that gratitude, the ultimate, what is it? Dispenza calls it the ultimate state of receivership, you know, and then we just relax. We don't try to will it to happen. We do our part, and then we just let the law take over and bring it about. So I love that it's so comprehensive and really kind of is Science of Mind in a nutshell. And let's see, the first, I wanted to share something. Let me see, where is it? Here it is. The first on page 183 in the Science of Mind textbook, and it's that whole chapter that he has on, where is it? I think I had the right page there. Yeah, it's on 183, causes and conditions, where he starts to talk about spiritual mind treatment and everything that's involved with it. And I love this first paragraph, and I wrote it out. And this just kind of is spiritual mind treatment, or everything that I just was talking about. The philosophy of spiritual mind healing is based upon a perception that we are living in a universe of intelligence, a spiritual universe, that thoughts, that should be thoughts are things, boop, and definite state of consciousness. And you know, I've read this probably a few times before, and for some reason that line really hit me this time, probably because we've been talking about states of being and states of consciousness so much in our classes and our workshops and on Sunday. And definite states of consciousness, as they become subjective, operate through a creative field and tend to reproduce themselves in form. Well, there it is. I think that pretty much says it. But I love the idea that You know, I remember I used to think that Holmes didn't really talk that much about feelings and about, and was really based a lot in thought and heady stuff. And the more I learn about how this philosophy, or how this, how these laws, the presence and the law of creative law work, I understand that it's so much more than just thought. That thought is the impetus, it's the start, but that there's this entire pattern that it follows, that we have to embody the consciousness, the state of being. We have to become what we want to see demonstrated in our life. And that's such an important part of prayer. And such an important part of our philosophy as well. But I think it's, and I was going to say, I used to think that, but the more I read him, the more I hear him talk about states of consciousness. And for me, and for, I think what he's trying to tell us is that's the feeling piece for him. I don't know, does anybody else have that experience, that he was a little heady, but maybe he didn't embody or incorporate the idea of feeling as much? But I think that shift in consciousness, or the states of being, is really the feeling. I don't know. Anybody else have an idea about that? Go ahead, Maureen.
Well, I had heard someone ask him that question, that why the science of mind was so much about the law and the mind. And he said, well, he just assumed people understood the love piece of it. And so he kind of said it goes without saying. Love is the basis of the universe. So
He gave us a lot of credit. I don't really think it does go without saying. I mean, I do, you know, he does talk an awful lot about love and the power of love and all of that. But yeah, I can see that. Lisa, I know you're talking, but you're muted, sweetie. There you go.
Yeah, no, I think that it's more like the evolution of the whole teaching. I mean, I think he probably just took it for granted for himself. But I think in terms of the teaching piece, and in terms of what people look at, that I think that it's been more recent, and that verbalization of the importance of feeling, not just love, but just feeling, has it's just been talked about more.
I agree. I think that's true. And that's great. You know, I mean, with the dispenser work, all of the stuff we've learned about quantum physics has kind of led us in that direction of, oh, you have to become it. It's not just a thought. It's a you know, it's a pattern that is embodied in our very being. So, yeah. So I sent some interesting reading stuff. I was just looking for stuff that I thought would be would add to our conversation. And one of the things that I got was that piece out of Living the Science of Mind, Healing is a Revelation. I don't know if you looked at it, but the 1, 2, 3rd paragraph kind of reminded me of what spiritual mind treatment is. It says, suppose we were told that a beautiful diamond ring lay at the bottom of a trunk filled with rubbish, and that it was to be ours when we should succeed in uncovering it. Should we care very much what method we use to remove the rubbish? The main thing would be to find the diamond. We should feel justified in using any method which would enable us to do this. This is equally true in spiritual mind healing. We must uncover the perfect man. We must remove every obstruction of thought which denies his presence. We can say this. But I was thinking about it, you know, we teach at the, you know, when you're in foundations and you're learning the recipe for spiritual mind treatment, you know, at first it seems kind of awkward. I always felt like it was a bit like patting your head and rubbing your belly, you know, because you were trying to learn this procedure in a way and yet forget everything so that you can have the flow of consciousness move through you. And so it was like juggling, you know, it was like, okay, I can do one ball, but I don't know if I can do two. And then of course, after a while, you become so accustomed that the recipe is ingrained in you so much that you can get out of your own way. And I don't know about all of you, but I almost feel like I'm just channeling when I do spiritual mind treatment now. It's just kind of out of the way, spirit through. So I thought that was interesting that he said that it didn't matter what the method was, it really doesn't, it doesn't. I think the key components are that we unify with the presence within, and we make that shift in consciousness that is the new state of being that we want to demonstrate in our lives, or we want to be behind the event or the experience or the thing or whatever it is that we want to experience. So I guess my question then is, do all of you stay to a recipe when you do spiritual mind treatment? Does it matter to you? Do you shift it up? Do you keep it interesting, or do you pretty much do the recipe every time? Do you follow the steps without even knowing you're following the steps? Maureen?
Yes, when I do a treatment, I hear the voice of Reverend Frank White in my head. And, a lot of the words are his words.
Yeah. So you pretty much do treatment the way that you originally learned it.
Right. I mean, it depends on the person. If I'm doing it before the congregation, it's probably a little more old school. If I'm doing it for a friend and I know this person or I know something about them, well, then I color it for them and I use specifics for their life and try to connect with them, because what I'm knowing for them, but I'd also like them to kind of join in the process and know as well.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I can relate to that. Yeah.
Me too.
That's great. How about you, Relaine? Relaine, you're an awesome prayer, so I'm going to pick on you.
Well, I love spiritual mind treatment. I just love it so much. And I love the steps and I follow them always. But I really step out of the way. And that's my feeling, is as much as I can step out of the way, the better. And it's so easy to follow the steps if I step out of the way. And I was just thinking about Quimby a lot, because, we taught that class, and Quimby, spiritual mind treatments, or Quimby, passed on some of that to Ernest Holmes. And I was thinking about that, I think that Quimby had this way of really understanding, I think, the states of being and the states of consciousness, and how he just merged with another person. And I think that's what happens in spiritual mind treatment, is that I feel a merging with the person and of consciousness while speaking the truth. And it's so easy to speak the truth with the steps. They just go so nicely with that. And I'm just so grateful for spiritual mind treatment, and that when people ask for it, it's really exciting and still wonderful. But I think I keep evolving with it in a lot of ways, and that's really interesting too, so I can't say enough positives about it.
Question to Relaine: when you first treatment, did you talk about feeling, or did that evolve?
Feeling is the main reason I pray. It all comes from my deep feeling. And I found reading Ernest Holmes' work, it was very wordy, but it was so full of feeling for me. It just connected me with so much overwhelmingly good feelings, and so that led me to want to be with Science of Mind for all these years, so yeah, it's all about the feeling for me.
I think you kind of put go ahead, Robert.
Oh, I was just going to say, it seems to me that there are two points or two aspects of spiritual mind treatment where feeling is at play, whether we insert more feelings into it or not. And the first is faith. We have to have faith to start off with. And faith, to me, is a feeling. Faith is the opposite of fear. The fear is a feeling, so is faith. Faith is a feeling that, for me, that there's something greater than I am, that I'm part of it, it just flows from that. And then the other feeling that's absolutely essential is gratitude. And that's one of the steps of the treatment as well. And you can't be grateful without feeling grateful. It's not possible. You have to have the feeling of gratitude in order to be grateful. So those are the two places for me where feeling is inherent in spiritual mind treatment. And if I also impart any other kinds of feelings into the third step of realization, then that's just added to the feeling mix. I was also going to answer your earlier question, which for me, it depends on the situation. If someone had just said, something's going on with them, they're sick or they're that or the other thing, and I'm going to pray for them of my own initiation, I'll go through a full spiritual mind treatment, and with all the steps laid out very carefully. And I've also found that if I say it to myself, at least vocally, it allows me to do it, to do the process better. Because if I think it, I lose track. My mind will wander off into the Netherlands. Who knows what I'll end up thinking about. I'll have to say, oh, wait a minute, I was supposed to be praying. But if I actually either sub-vocalize it or just say it out loud to myself, it keeps me on track. But if someone sends me an email, let's say, and Maureen and I get emails every week from a person in Mexico with a list of people to pray for, conditions to be prayed for. And there might be 10, 12, 15 different people and conditions in this email. Well, I do not even think about saying a separate spiritual mind treatment for each of them, or even a full spiritual mind treatment and then inserting them all into the realization step. I just look at that list, I read it to myself, I say, it's done, and so it is, basically, or some variation on that. But I don't go through a formal affirmative prayer. So that's my take on that stuff.
Yeah.
Something about gratitude. I just had a question of everyone. Michael Beckwith's church, if you've been there, he trains his own practitioners, and the first step of treatment is gratitude. And I just wondered, for us, it's the fourth step of treatment. And I just wondered sometimes I do gratitude first. Usually I do the, unification, but I just wondered if anyone else.
Sometimes Lisa's got her hand up. Yeah.
My sense is that the steps are there, and that once you know the steps well enough, that conceivably you could put them in any order. So I think that if it's in a particular situation, sometimes it is more comfortable to start with the gratitude, particularly I think for a large group. I don't think it's written in stone that each step has to follow the other.
Yeah, and I think that's why I read that paragraph to you about the diamond, and actual steps
Any way you can get there.
don't matter as much as that we have that that connection, we have that shift in consciousness that that creates that state of being that we want to express. And gratitude is definitely a creative force. So I can see why it would be great to start with that occasionally. I know Jim Massapos, when he does his thank you God that, he always says that gratitude should be at the front. You know, and I absolutely could see doing that. And I think you're right. It doesn't really, I don't really think it matters.
I think that when Robert brought it up in Marine, what came to mind for me is that gratitude is in every step for me.
Oh, I like that. Yeah.
It just is.
Yeah, you have that feeling. Gratitude is that feeling of expansion and good and love and all of the things that we talk about that are in the divine presence anyway. And it's just kind of woven throughout the entire thing. So I get that, along with faith and all of the other things, conviction and just a sheer knowing that that law will respond, that it has no choice because it's the law. So.
And the other thing I forgot to say when I was talking about the, the list of people and conditions was, I will often say, thank you, Spirit, that each of these people's lives are proceeding in divine order.
Mm-hmm.
Something along those lines. I try to avoid saying thank you, God, that because I don't want to infringe on Jim's copyright.
There you go. But I think starting with that sense of gratitude is great. And, when I get a list of people or a list of people to pray for, I often will divide it into, we have basically the 4 groups: health, prosperity, relationships, career, all just kind of, but, it's all the same. Yeah, I remember when I first started teaching foundations, I used to always make sure that I said that there's really only one prayer. And that prayer is our connection to the divine and the good that's there, however it's expressed. That it's never about the thing, the experience, or whatever we want to see in form. It's always about that shift in consciousness that connects us to the reality of our being. And there's the prayer, and I still believe that. I still practice that.
I have to laugh. I just was reading, I found this article I've been looking for. I can't remember who brought up, what's her name? Looking at her picture, my brain is going blank. At any rate, why is that going? Anyway, what she says is there are 3 prayers. Help, thank you. And yes, help, thank you, and wow. And I think that it's almost like being in the wow frame of mind. You can be, if you can get in that frame of mind for when you have a bunch of people, that it's like that's kind of what is propelling whatever word you say.
Yeah.
At the time.
Marie.
I have a question then. How do you make every treatment a wow? Because there are sometimes I'll do a treatment. I like doing individual treatments because if I'm present with someone, I seem to start to vibrate with them. And I know exactly, I'm led to where I'm supposed to go.
Right.
And sometimes almost like there's a click. It's like all of a sudden we're together and everything coming out of my mouth is perfect. And I get that click, I get that, maybe it's conscious. You get to a point of consciousness where it's divinely inspired. The person has a catharsis, they cry, or they, let out a huge, whatever it is, but you know that the log jam has been broken and that the treatment is complete at that moment. It's perfect. And other times it's kind of like what Rob was saying about, I kept thinking, well, what does he mean by a misfire? Well, sometimes I feel like I'm not using the right words. or I'm not, I don't know, I'm not on the wave, you know.
Yeah, in sync, I would call it.
Well,
I know
thinking,
exactly what you mean.
feeling.
What's
But-
that, Robert?
I said then thinking is taking over feeling. You know, when you're thinking too much about what word you're gonna use. I hate the word channeling because I don't like people. I mean, I don't like channeling of different things like, you know, Abraham Hicks and stuff. But channeling spirit is fine.
Well, that's what I think we do. We do spiritual mind treatment is we just
Yeah.
go with the flow. That's
But
that
what-
flow we're always talking about, you know, getting in
Yeah.
sync.
Well, what Maureen is describing is, you know, sometimes she's in the zone, she's in the
Yeah.
flow. And
And you can tell when you get there. I completely relate to what you said, that it's like, oh, there I am. And then everything and you get into that momentum of life, you know, you can feel it just kind of moving through you. And that's when the words just come like that. And it doesn't even really matter what they are. You're just so in the vibe of it. Yeah, I totally get what you're talking about. Everybody else know what I'm talking about?
Right. And I think that's the wow. The
That's the
click,
wow.
the click is the wow. And the reality is we are human beings. And sometimes we're not in the right space to get there. And it's almost like having to just sort of let go and start over. I think when it's like you're getting that sense of I'm not, you know, that whole thing when your words tangle. It's just kind of like you almost have to just plow through and pick it up later. You know, because who knows, you know, it's kind of like you may have eaten the wrong thing or have slept oddly or just be in the wrong energy, you know,
Or you're attached, too attached, because
to attach to it. Yeah.
Yeah.
I sent out the request for my former husband because I am attached to him and to his property. And I thought, I'm too close to this. I need others to do prayer treatment because I get too emotional and I cannot think. I mean, I can't, it's not think, I cannot allow myself to see the perfection.
Mhm.
You know, I was only seeing the fire. I was only seeing the smoke. I was only seeing the health. So, yeah, and turn it over.
Yeah, I think sometimes when we're so attached or so connected, it's difficult to be objective.
but you know, you know, a lot of people recommend that if you aren't feeling it, you know, if that wow factor isn't there after you get through the first two steps, you go back and do the first two steps over again.
Absolutely. Yeah,
And it
sure.
seems to me that if you're not feeling some level of wow, when you just consider that there's only one creative consciousness in the universe and you're one with it, if you can't feel some level of wow at that, you're off base somehow. You've gotten untracked and you need to get back on track.
I totally agree. Yeah. I know Yvonne kind of lives in the wow. So when you do spiritual mind treatment, Yvonne, do you just start in the wow and just end in the wow? How does it go for you?
Well, of course, I try to live in the wow.
You
It's interesting to listen to all of you because I've been doing sorts of spiritual mind treatment since I was about 10 years old, because as you all know, I was a Christian Scientist at that point, and it's not organized in the same way, but the thinking and the feeling is still there. So I think about it a lot. One thing that Ernest says, and I really believe this, and I think everyone that I deal with that does a lot of praying, and I can really, well, anyway, is right thinking. I think that, and Ernest says that's the whole point of it, is to get everybody's thinking right. So I spend a lot of time thinking about, when I get to the actual middle part of my prayer, what's the thinking that I have to make sure I have right? And then after I have that all figured out, and sometimes that takes a while because, you know, we don't all think perfectly all the time, unfortunately. That would make life much easier. But so I work on that a lot. And then I try and work on, and I don't always, I try and work on overcoming the thinking of whoever it is I might be holding prayer for. Because that's another part of it. And I know that this is a feeling I have a lot about people in our congregation, in our and other people. I think that there are people that think, oh, and actually now that I'm saying this, I think my mother might have been one of these. I'll just call the practitioner and have them do prayer, and that's all I have to do.
Yeah.
Well, I don't agree to that. I think, and I know that as practitioners, you can't sit and say, well, look, you need to be thinking this and this and this. You have to do it differently. But and I have to say, because Raylene has helped me with my dog and other things a few times, and Raylene is always very careful to say, what do you want? What do you want out of this prayer? And I love that, because it makes me realize that she's adjusting her thinking for me. It's hard too, huh, Raylene? But anyway, so I think that's very important. And I think feeling it, I mean, Ernest says feeling is what it's all about. And Ernest also says it's all about love. It's love. Well, okay, for me, I have to sit and say, what does that mean? What does it mean for this particular prayer that it's all about love? Because I love everybody. I mean, to some extent, I have to work on it. But so I think that's very important. And gratitude, I try to be grateful every single day, all the time. And that's very difficult. For me, it's very difficult because like last night, I had a horrible night sleeping, and I woke up with, I guess it was what you would call nightmares. And I just wanted to yell at the day this morning, and yet I wouldn't let myself. I said, wait a minute, hold on, Sister Sue. You know, look at all the good things, and don't make another movement out of this bed, in the bed or whatever, until you've got that nailed down, which I think has to happen for these prayers. So anyway, I don't need to go on all night.
No, I'm glad you did. That's really true. I really think.
And I do worry about the people, not worry, that's the wrong word, but I don't like it when someone says, yeah, like, I'm sure my mother was that way. Just call the practitioner and let them do all the work and send them the money. And that isn't going to work.
But the reality is, Yvonne, that in the course of, it is a part of the course of the praying, is to see that person, no matter how you view them or how lost they are, as they're perfect. And that, you know, that's just the thing. And that you have to not worry about the fact, you have to trust that if other things they're supposed to change, somehow they'll be shown the way to do that, or guided to figure out a way, or they'll ask you, you know, what else could I do? And
that's
if
a perfect way to say it. Yeah, you're right.
yeah, and if they don't, you just have, you kind of let it go. I mean,
Right.
I know that in terms of individually, when I'm praying with someone, I really do try, because my imagination is pretty fruitful. A lot of times I will be able, as I'm speaking, is that I'm seeing them in their perfection, in whatever it is they're talking about. That it's like to be able to visually see them as having received whatever it is they say they want. And I feel as if I do that, that I've done my job, and then I just have to let it go. That the rest of it, the change of thought or the other things that they ought to be doing, you know, unless they ask me,
Yeah.
you know, if they say, what else could I do? And a lot of times in a practitioner session, you know, you're talking back and forth and you get a sense of this person would be open to hearing what I have to say in terms of this is another way they could think about it or what have you.
And I
Let's-
think what Maureen was saying is the real beauty of seeing a practitioner is sometimes we're just too close and we
Right.
have trouble shifting on our own. And so we borrow that faith of another person. We borrow that objectivity until we can hold it for ourselves, you know, until we catch that fire, that vibe. I'm sorry, Robert, you were going to say something.
Well, what Yvonne was saying underlines for me the difference between just doing a spiritual mind treatment for someone and having either a full-blown or partial practitioner session for someone. And those are two different animals, because prayer is only the last part of a practitioner session.
Yeah.
There's a lot more that goes into it, you know, and what you were describing, Yvonne, with Verlaine, you know, is more like a practitioner session. You know, it's not just, oh, I need a spiritual mind treatment for this, and then the person does it, you know, and that's what often went on when we'd have a meeting with a practitioner after, you know, service on Sundays.
Right,
Yeah.
that wasn't a session. That was
Yeah,
just.
5 minutes or so. I mean, a session can be an hour and a half. I did a session with someone for 4 hours. I mean, it was
That was a long one.
long. You know, because there was so much that was in it, you know, and I finally concluded with a prayer that tried to bring it all together and include everything that it was clear the person really wanted out of the situations.
Yeah, I think Yvonne, I think you're right on. That's really what you were talking about is a practitioner, part of their job in a session, if you will, is education and helping the person have that shift in consciousness so they can hold that wow for themselves, you know, so that they can continue it and sustain it on their own.
I think you're right. And I think that would be an interesting presentation to have at our center, for our center, because I think people don't understand the difference between the prayer that happens on the way out to go home and working with a practitioner. I think that would be really an interesting thing to talk about at some point. Maybe we're not ready to talk about that now. I don't know, but.
Well, I think you're right. That it would be, I think people don't know the difference between just a prayer after service or just calling someone and saying, hey, I need prayer, or going through an actual practitioner session. I don't think most people do.
No.
The only issue that I can see that would come up with like a demonstration or something, you know, showing what a practitioner session is about, is that the session itself is so personal and so intimate. And there's such this strong connection that you're flowing with this other person, and intuitively, as Lisa said, intuitively you can feel what they're ready to hear and what they're not ready to hear. I don't know if you could do that in a group.
Well,
Do you know what I mean?
I don't either, but I think it's something that people don't know. And I don't think you have to get into as much detail maybe as you're thinking about, but you have to I think people need to know that it's different. When you go to have a session with a practitioner, it's different. And that's what one of the differences, the training that they've had.
It's really true. Yeah, I
Right.
wonder how we can do that. We'll have to think about how we can set that up. Maureen.
Well, I disagree with Robert somewhat in that the length of the prayer treatment is not the most important factor. I think it's important I can do a treatment in probably 15 minutes would be a good length for me. Also because I have had I have a friend who we are partners. We do prayer treatment for each other each week. And her method of doing prayer treatment is about 15 minutes longer than mine because she goes off into, it's a beautiful day and the sun is shining and the trees are, and the birds and fish. And, you know, she does this huge thing about, you know, she's out there and it's nice. And I feel like that's good, but that's not how I do treatment. When I do treatment, it's like, boom, I'm right to the core. I'm right in there talking about the issues. I'm really showing that unity, that unification. And that doesn't take me, you know, I can do that after the service. Give me 15 or 20 minutes. I mean, I can't do it in 2 minutes, or I'm not crazy about the 1 minute treatment we used to do in front of the congregation. Yeah, I need more time, but I think each person needs their own, is at their own rhythm.
Right, I agree with that, Marina, but I think also that it's kind of like if it were possible to talk about it just in a generic way in terms of what, if we could present somehow to the congregation in a generic way that what a prayer that is, you know, that is a quick prayer, like if you just call and say, I want you to pray for me, or you see me in the hall and you say, oh, will you pray for me because I have a cold, and they run off, that's one kind of prayer. But that what a practitioner is capable of doing is much deeper, and it can be as long or short as necessary, and sometimes it's more than one time, because sometimes you reveal an issue within the 15-minute treatment that the person is seeing as another piece of what they need to work with, and they're willing to work, you know, a next week to talk to you again about it or what have you. So I think it's kind of like there's some value in being able to find a way to present to the congregation that it's not just a, you know, one-shot deal kind of a thing that's real quick and
Right,
Well,
I
bless
agree.
you, my child, you know.
let me
But
put,
what, just 1 second, I want to add something.
go ahead.
Also, I think what Michelle said earlier about we're trying to educate, and sometimes I give people an affirmation and ask them, go home this week and you're going to work on the affirmation, because I feel like it is not completely cleared for that person. And like you say, you know, and speaking words is not going to clear it up, because they have to, you know, move their feet as well.
Right, that a practitioner often gives homework.
Yeah, I always do.
But you know, one of the things that there was, I can't remember her name, but someone who did a sermon, and basically she talked about how a practitioner holds your gold for you when you can't hold it yourself. And I really like that metaphor, you know, that it's kind of like you're holding their perfection until they can take it on for themselves.
Love that.
Could I just for a moment put my president of the board hat on and ask Yvonne, are you suggesting that we do a Sunday presentation about this? Because, and the reason I ask is because it seems like we're doing it right now. And, you know, and this was, you know, notice this is about affirmative prayer and spiritual mind treatment, and look who's here.
Well, yeah, no, I didn't mean, actually what's in my mind, which could be crazy, I don't know, is something like maybe a one-time class, one meeting class, and you could do it as a webinar. So, or you could do it like this, just a plain thing like this, and anybody that wanted to come for an hour or whatever, however long it would take, would understand, because I don't know. Yeah, go ahead.
Sorry.
No.
My sense is that it would be really nice if we could have kind of like a little shortened presentation during a service, because that's where, you know, because it's being recorded and so forth, that's where people could hear it. And it's kind of like the people who are already coming in, it's like we're wanting them to be asking for prayer treatment.
Mhm.
And
You know,
so,
maybe we need to change, you know, we always do spiritual mind treatment or affirmative prayer. Maybe we need to make it specific and say, this is what a practitioner session looks like.
yeah,
Change the wording. I'm sorry,
Right.
Glenn, I think you had your hand up.
Yeah, one time, Reverend Kimberly did a, just a short, 10, 15-minute talk at the service, the Sunday service, on what a practitioner session is. And she sort of, opened it up to encourage congregants to take advantage of it. And that it was really why practitioners went full. And it was, really, she just did a really nice job. And lo and behold, I had someone call me. And that was like, great, And we actually had an actual practitioner session. And I was thinking that it might be nice to do both, where Reverend Michelle, you were able to talk about it just a little bit in a Sunday service, not the whole thing, but just kind of speaking to it. And then maybe having a Zoom class on in the evenings and inviting people to come, and then structuring that. Maybe the practitioners who are interested, we could get together, and Reverend Michelle, we could all kind of look at that and see how we might do some kind of little, class on what a practitioner session might look like. Again, being sensitive to privacy and all those kinds of things. And then out of that, we might end up with people actually calling us for practitioner sessions. Would be really wonderful. And I do think it's really something that I would love to see, addressed and shared with the congregants, because truly they're missing out. I feel they're missing out on
I totally agree.
and the power is within each person, and I don't think they fully really realize that until they have a practitioner session, because that's what we teach.
I think that's true. We talked about, I don't know if it was at the practitioner meeting or a board meeting, about offering a spiritual tune-up or a practitioner session, basically, to anybody on their birthday. And I sent out August birthday cards, and I just did a practitioner session yesterday on Monday for someone who had an August birthday. And we were on the phone for a little over an hour, and it was so enlightening for them, I think, because unless you actually do it and are in the process, you really don't get the I don't know what the word is, the overall feeling and the power of meeting with someone who's holding your good for you, and helping you to move forward. It's just a powerful thing. So I really agree with everyone. What do you think, Yvonne?
I think that it's a great thing to do, and because it's a basis of what we believe and what we
Totally
try to
is.
teach. So we need to teach it. And I think we're smart and we have a lot of help. So we can come up with some interesting way to do that.
I think that's really true.
And maybe even just when you sit and when I sit here and listen to you guys that are practitioners, you're all different. And they being our congregants, need to know that everybody isn't the same, and it's powerful. We're not talking about, yay God. Well, we are. But
And this ain't no milk toast.
Well,
Sorry, you had your hand up.
I was thinking maybe we could do it before our next practitioner meeting, which is next month, but we could do a practitioner Sunday in which each practitioner would take one of the steps of treatment and explain it. And each practitioner then would talk a little bit about it. And we could also, maybe Michelle or the lone practitioner, because what do we have, 6 practitioners?
Probably something like that. Yeah.
7. We have 7 practitioners. And then you make. But we could also talk about some of the obligations of the practitioner and just give people in the congregation a little more background, and the ethic. So people are not, they have an idea what they're asking for.
I think that's a really great idea that we can brainstorm this and come up. I actually think we could do it on a Practitioner Sunday. I'm not so sure that I think we've all been talking about this, but I think it's the session that people really don't know that much about. Yeah, and somehow or another we can put that together so that people are educated about what a session really looks like and what really happens in a session. I'm not exactly sure how that would look, but Relaine.
I just want to know, Sarah, what do you think about all
I
this?
was going to call on her too. She's too quiet.
Well, I'm flattered that since I don't do a lot of spiritual mind treatments, but my thoughts are more along the lines of how powerful, like some people, and I've said this before, that just feeling fear is a prayer. It's much stronger than an affirmation. And so I'm kind of coming to it from that point, just listening to you all. I obviously don't treat for other people. I have worked with those steps. But for me, I have, Michelle, somebody was talking about holding the space. Was it you, Lisa?
Yeah.
A lot of holding space for friends and strangers who are facing fire and that kind of thing, which is similar, but it's different. It's not what you guys do. But as far as myself and creating change, I work more with always from that concept of how fear works, but for good, some kind of a positive feeling that sometimes for me, it's very casual. And there will be a demonstration, boom, and I have to think back, oh my gosh, that was just a thought but that thought was so more powerful than I realized at the time.
Yeah.
So thank you, Relaine, for bringing me in, but that's kind of my 2 cents. I'm learning a lot here.
And isn't it whenever you see a demonstration like that, doesn't it validate and build faith, build conviction? Oh, this stuff really works.
But in terms of holding space that you were talking about, I was watching someone online who was talking about they will sit and watch the news and hold positive space and pray for people that as they're watching the horrendous things that are going on, wherever. And I think there's value in that in terms of being able to sense spirit in wherever.
I think so too. Go ahead, Robert.
Yeah, well, I wanted to say 2 things. One, about one of the things Sarah said. Sarah, there's no reason you can't pray for other people. You don't have to be a practitioner to pray for other people.
Well, holding the space is really close.
And the other
It's
thing I was just thinking about when Maureen and I were just beginning our relationship, especially late 2014 and early 2015, I was still living in the Bay Area and she was down here. And, I'd be having a problem of some sort, maybe with health or something else. And she would say, we'd have at the end of a long telephone conversation, she says, okay, now I'm going to do a treatment for you, And she would say, when I'm done, we're going to hang up. We're not going to talk more because I want the treatment to be the last thing that happens in this phone call. And she would then do a treatment, and I always, hang up afterwards, and I always felt better. No matter what it was that was bothering me, it always made me feel better. And that was my first, personal exposure to being prayed for. And, and here I am today.
There you are. Yvonne.
I was just going to ask Jim what he thinks of all this. We haven't heard from him.
I was afraid somebody would put me on the spot, you know, I guess I'm at a point where I, you know, I really like the spiritual mind treatment and the all the stuff Elaine does. It's kind of scary because, you know, I feel like I live with a clairvoyant genius, and so, you know, it's a little intimidating. You know, I've tried, you know, pretty frequently to really learn the you know, the steps and the techniques of doing you know, a kind of a formal spiritual mind treatment. You know, I fall away from it and then I forget things and I have to come back and learn it all over again. But I'm really for it. I just think it's a wonderful thing practitioners do. And it works. It really works. And I'm just really impressed with all of you that do this. So, and I've got my work cut out for me. I don't think I'll ever catch up with Elaine, but maybe I can satisfy myself and I can pray for others as in a good way. So that's what I think of it all.
I'm sure you can.
I think too, when Jim was talking, it made me think of my life. And I've been involved with Science of Mind for 35 years. And every time I thought about being a practitioner, they'd say, well, you have to take that class over again because it expired. So I take it again, and then I get my life together, and then I'd say, you know, might want to be oh, I'm sorry that they expired again. You got to take them again. I was like always taking these classes over again. And so I feel my life is a lot like what Jim just described.
You finally made it. I remember that day when you passed your oral panels, when Larry King came down from Portland, and wasn't Larry there? Who was your paneler?
You talking to me?
Yeah, you.
Oh, it was Andy Anderson.
Oh,
Reverend Andy. Oh yeah, I was so happy he was on my panel, and you know, there was a practitioner that was really wonderful. Yeah, it was just such a wonderful experience. Yeah, no, it was great. Jim was going to say one more thing.
Oh, Elaine, taking classes over and over again because they expired. Just remind me of a little aside of something to do with spiritual mind treatment. When I lost my useful vision back when I was in my late 20s, and I had to give up my driver's license and get you know, the kind of ID card you can get when you, you know, so, you know, I took it in once and I cashed a check and pulled my card, and they said, this is expired. Well, no, this is just an ID card. That doesn't expire until I expire. I didn't buy it at the DMV for years. New ID cards because mine. That reminds me of people that like Elaine that had to take these classes over and over again because they expired. Well, the knowledge never expires. In fact, you get better at it. So, anyway.
It's too funny.
Oh, well, it's 7 o'clock. Oh, I really wanted to know, I know this is going over. What do you think is creates for you the most powerful spiritual mind treatment? If you just like a couple of words, what makes the most powerful spiritual mind treatment?
The person that I'm with, just being with a person is wonderful. If I'm treating, you know, for them, that right away makes it really alive and wonderful.
How about you, Yvonne?
Feeling what? Feeling.
Yeah. Yeah, that clunk that Maureen was talking about, that's,
Right.
that's the feeling in sync. Yeah. How about you, Lisa?
Yeah, I would say the same. It's that connection, the clunk that comes with that connecting with the person.
How
And
about you,
spirit
Maureen? Oh,
combined.
sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, the clunk is the most wonderful feeling, but I think also if I have the mindset set, of what Robert talked about is faith. If I go into a treatment just knowing the glory and the beauty and the fantastic ability to change reality, change, a possibility to, a wave to a particle. And it's like, have that enthusiasm and that know ahead of time, then I get very enthusiastic. And then I'm actually very happy to do a treatment. I get excited.
Yeah, totally. I get it. Robert, thank you for sharing that. I think we're kind of all saying the same thing, but what do you think, Robert?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think we're all pretty much saying the same thing. I mean, for me, it's if I feel like I'm in the zone.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Seems to me that a treatment can be a treatment or it can be a treatment plus. And the plus comes in when you're in that zone.
When you're in the zone.
When you really feel like you're completely present. The person you're treating for is completely present. You're on that same channel. And there's no static. It's just
Yeah.
It's pure.
You can tell, okay, that one took. Totally get that. How about you, Sarah? When you're praying, whether for yourself or others, how do you know it's a powerful presence?
The most powerful thing for me is what like vibration I'm at when I start.
Yeah.
And that's kind of unconscious sometimes. So you really have to pay attention. And
Yeah.
I sometimes do and sometimes don't.
Yeah, I hear that. How about you, Jim? Do you have anything to add to that? When you're praying for yourself or others, is there a feeling that makes this a powerful prayer or just holding the space for someone?
I don't know if I can identify it,
It's tough, right?
but when I do pray for others, I know that there comes a point where I really start to feel good. And I really begin to feel, connected to the issues and the person. So I
Yeah.
don't know how to put words with it. So
I think we all kind of said the same thing. That's the power. Well, this was fun. Thank you. I love talking about this. And we got a lot of things to think about teaching our congregation and
Right.
about sessions. So who would like to do a closing prayer? I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, I just said it's exciting.
It is exciting. Who wants to do the closing prayer this evening? Don't be shy.
I'll do it.
Okay, Relaine, thank you.
Oh, you're welcome. So feeling this wonderful connection and gratitude and just the kindness and compassion and empathy and high vibrational feeling of love and beauty and order of the science of mind, spiritual mind treatment, and Ernest Holmes and Quimby and just everyone that we've studied. Just such gratitude, and for Reverend Michelle for organizing this evening, and for all of us for showing up, and for our wonderful One Heart, One Mind community and beyond. It's just so amazing to talk about prayer and feel the vibrational energy, the magnetic energy of gratitude and that awe and that wow feeling. And so with gratitude and love and light and peace, ease, and so much more, I release this prayer in an amazing state of being, of grace and poise. And I simply say together, and so it is.
Oh, it is.
Thank you so much. That was so fun.
It was great. Thank you,
And
Michelle.
next week, Maureen will be teaching her class.
Yes.
Looking forward to that. And I'll send out whatever you need to send out to everybody if you need me to. Okay.
Okay, great.
All right. Good night, everyone.
Bye.
This was fun. Take care. Thanks for coming.